own forum, the break session on the economy and trade. So let's give the floor to Mr. Yamaguchi and Mr. Zhang from China side to be the mentoring. I am Yamaguchi. It's been a long time to see you, and it's been like 1 year since I met Mr. Zhang last time. And Mr. Wei is joining Chinese side right now. We are quite looking forward to meeting you, Mr. Zhang and Mr. Wei. And so it's been a year. And today we are having this panel discussion online. This is also the first time we do so. And I would say that everyone, all the panelists are quite talkative. So how we can spend next 2 hours, make the discussion more meaningful, it would be the duty of me and Mr. Zhang as moderators. Okay. First of all, I'd like to introduce the guests and the panelists from Japanese side. Then Mr. Ohashi, Honorary Advisor of Showa Denko. And on my right side, and Mr. Kunibe, Chairman of Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group. On my left hand, Mr. Nakao, he's the chairman of the institute at the Mitsuo Research Institute, and also former president of Asia Development Bank. And also Mr. Mori, vice president and managing director of Mori Building, and Mr. Eiichi, advisor to Mitsubishi UFJ Bank. On my left side, and we also have Mr. Iyama, managing director and chairman of China Council of Nomura Group. And on his side, we also have Mr. Honoka, executive manager director of Mitsuo Fudosan. And that's all the guests from Japanese side. Then let's give the floor to China side. And Mr. Zhang, the floor is yours. I'm very glad to be here again to moderate this session with Mr. Yamaguchi. And the year of 2020 is a very special and eventful year. I'm very glad to join all the friends from China side and Japan side to have this discussion. I am Zhang Yansheng, and I'm the chief researcher of CCIEE, China Center for International Economic Exchanges. On my left side is Mr. Wei Jianguo. Mr. Wei is an old friend of us, and he's been participating in the Beijing Tokyo Forum for so many years. And when the bilateral relations between of our two countries was in strength, and Mr. Wei has very actively involved in this. And Mr. Wei was also the former vice minister to Ministry of Commerce in China, and he's also the vice chairman of CCIEE. On my other side is Mr. Chu Liang. Mr. Chu is vice president for China Everbright Bank. You know that China Everbright Bank was established in 1992 under the guidance of our leader, late leader, Mr. Deng Xiaoping. And then Mr. Chen Youan. Mr. Chen is the former chairman of China Galaxy Securities company, and he worked in China's NDRC, Gansu province, and HSBC, and other institutions. So he took many important positions in so many financial institutions. He's very experienced. And on my right side, we have Mr. Yao Yang, Dean of the School of National Development, Peking University. Mr. Yao is also the editor-in-chief of Economy Journal. Mr. Yao has lots of insights and experience in institutional changes and policy development, and he's very influential. He has won the Zhang Peigang Economic Development Award, Fushan Economic Award, and Fushan Economic Development Award. So all the panelists from China side. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Thank you for your detailed introduction. And next, we only have 2 hours, as you know. So we'd like to break the today's time into 2 parts. The first part, let's discuss around the world economy, what kind of issues and challenges the world economy is facing. As you know that the globalization is encountering some changes in protectionism and challenges toward multilateralism are all rising. Therefore, how should we see the world economy moving forward? And Japan and China, what kind of measures we should take, or what kind of reform we should try to avoid those and to ease those challenges. The next part is so based on the discussion results. The first part was the end of the post-pandemic situation, China, Japan, what kind of effort we should do to restore our economies, especially China has already firstly achieved a positive economic growth. So we also would like to hear from the panelists and experts from both sides. And then how will China and Japan work together to build a stable world and Asian economy? And what should be done, what kind of efforts and endeavors can be taken. So that's all the major topics that we are going to have for today. And for each of the parts, we will have the experts, one from Japan side, another from China side, to share with us their observations and their thinkings. And then after that, we will have a very short period of time of Q&A. Because our time schedule, so I'd like each of the panelists to control your time within 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, first of all, let's give the floor to Mr. Ohashi to share with us his observations. Thank you. I am Mitsuo Ohashi. Currently, the United States just completed its presidential election, and right now they are in the transition of government from Trump administration to Biden presidency. I won't go into details because you know that already. So after the election, then the relation between China and the United States may not be improving too much from my perspective. Because according to the American survey about their feelings and sentiment towards China, and they actually uh, so we would say that the two countries, whether their relation can be improved or not, it may have a very high impact on the world economy. So this is a very important issue that we are facing right now. And Chinese friends, you all know that as well. Mm, Liu Mingfu, a professor from China's University of Defense, proposed the China Dream in 2010. One is to prosperous country. Second is about strong military, and third is about a China Dream. So he or she, this professor clearly proposed the China Dream. And top of that, there are lots of detailed contents. And after that, President Xi Jinping and also clearly made such propositions, and China is following the path of modernization. But if we have a reflection on this, before Opium War, China's GDP accounts one third of that of the world total. If we return back to the year of that time, China's dream is or ambition is huge. On the other hand, how China to achieve that dream, in what ways, like they mentioned by the professor about a strong military, if you do more efforts on military um, part, then it may be cautious by other countries. To be frank, China GDP by average is having very high growth rate. But some other population, other people, their lives are still facing poverty. Um, so for those people living in poverty, and their living and the life once being guaranteed, what kind of pursuit they may have in the future as next step, I think they may pursue for freedom. So that would be a challenge. What kind of impact it may have on China's system? I think that's a major issue. So in summary, President Xi Jinping has proposed the China dream very clearly that we should restore the great rejuvenation of Chinese nation. So if we review and look back to the history, world leaders to conduct some big or major transformation, when that happens, then it may put the world in a risky landscape. That is what we learned in history. That's what happened in the history. So if that's the case, it may possibly start a risk of war. If another war starts, it may lead to the destruction of the world. So we cannot allow that happen. We cannot have the world to have another war. So as the centers of the world, our two countries, we need to be certain of that. And before the Opium War, China was a superpower in the world. And now, if China wants to restore its prosperity it once had in history, then all the countries in the world are closely watching the development of China, and we hope such development won't pose any risks. Okay, now let's give the floor to Mr. Nakao from Japanese side. Mr. Nakao is joining us from online. Actually, I have visited China for 16 times when I worked in Asia Development Bank, ADB. I have met many officials, including Mr. Lou Jiwei and other gentlemen from Chinese side. So today, we're talking about that under the divergence world economy, what positions of China, Japan are taking. But first of all, let's discuss whether this is a polarized economy.
People are worried the loss of technology. How can we prepare to secure the supply chain during the pandemic? Each country are also very concerned about the medical supplies. We can see the super globalization is being corrected. That is acceptable to many. However, globalization, the linkage of a supply chain means we need to have unimpeded global financing flow that is critical for globalization. Let's take a look at development in China. When I was working in ADB, we issued a journal called Prosperity of Asia. In that journal, we started China's reform, opening up, and through investments in technology, through engaging with the world, China developed. In 2010, China acceded to WTO and become a central link to the value chain, and our economy has started to grow by strengthening collaboration with Japan, US in terms of education, research, and business ties. China enhanced its technological capabilities at the fifth plenary session of the Central Committee of CPC held in October. China proposed the idea of a dual circulation that means domestic demand-led economy has already made some progress. For example, prior to the global financial crisis, the current account surplus was as high as 10% of GDP. And now it's almost at a balance. So the active investment and vigorous consumption helped China to grow its economy. In the 14th five-year plan, aims to narrow the disparity between the urban and rural area, promote common development, and also adopt redistribution to narrow the wealth gap and promote the green and low carbon development. BRI, as well as to secure that sustainability. Japan's modernization started in Meiji era, and it was a model of development for Asia, reflecting on the Great Harmony, pre-war militarism and expansionism caused damages to Asia countries and Japan. And Japan has cooperated with Asia through trade, investment, technology transfer, and ODA. It also conducive to Japan development and peace. Since 1978, the two countries signed a peace and a friendship treaty, and we have entered into more collaboration, and the parties, the two sides highlighted the goal to enter into a mutually beneficial collaboration. Recently, we have signed ICEP and work together to advance a broad-based free trade area in Asia. China has been a global power. China is no longer a developing country by its own definition in terms of economy, industry, finance, and technology, military culture. China is an influential global power. Since the 19th century, China feels resentment due to the humiliation suffered in the mid-19th century. And China wants to grow to compete with China's supremacy. I think China would go into the trap of Thucydides' trap. We no longer live in a world that is pursuing racism, imperialism, colonization. We know that the countries want to grow through trade, cooperation, and to improve the lives of their people. If we take a different road that might harm its own people and the world. Next, go back to the Chinese side. The two Japanese experts have given excellent remarks. Next, I will give the floor to the Chinese panelists first. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Wei Jianguo. Thank you. I'm very delighted to meet the old friends to discuss about bilateral collaboration, I want to make one point in the 5 minutes I have. And the new Euro, this is the best time for China and Japan to engage in collaboration. There are 3 reasons I would like to present. I agree with your call on the global economic landscape. The economic center will shift eastward at a faster pace than we have expected. Going forward, the US, EU, and regional economies, the economic recovery will not be that fast, and we will see continued recession. The manufacturing industry, the service industry, technology, capital, the personnel will see a eastward shift to come to East Asia, including China, Japan, ROK, and the ASEAN nations. With regard to this issue, the US have taken notice. Going forward, as the Japanese panelist, Ms. Ohashi has mentioned that going forward, the main arena of debate for China EU will also move eastward in East Asia, in Asia Pacific. China and the US will compete in the economic sector. We should fully appreciate that. However, we agree on 2 points that China's consumption market, as well as the consumption market in East Asia, going forward would become the largest market for the world. The signing of RCEP not only in it means the 15 more effective allocation of the factors of production. More importantly, the consumption in these markets would take the lead in the world. And in this large market, we'll see more innovations. That means going forward, the innovation in terms of technology, market consumption, institutional reform, innovation, as well as new economy, the smart city, 5G, big data, cloud computing. In the next 5 years, we'll see more breakthroughs in this large market. Secondly, post the globalization, for a short period of time, we will see de-globalization and re-emergence of globalization, because post the pandemic, some countries believe their supply chain, value chain, particularly in the US, they didn't reflect upon its own issues. Instead, they believe globalization resulted in the growing gap of the wealth, inequality, inequitability of the income, the hollowing out of the manufacturing industry. And China actually is the largest victim of the unequitable trade. The new globalization in the 3 to 5 years after the pandemic will emerge. The new globalization would be different. Currently, US take globalization as a victim, as scapegoat to blame it for everything. Globalization, I think that it has a main failing, that is it did not keep up with the times. We need to make improvements in 2 aspects. Number one, the new globalization means it's inclusive, equitable, balanced, and focuses on win-win, mutually beneficial collaboration. That would be the one key feature for new globalization. And secondly, the new globalization will be led by the new economy, by the digital economy. Lastly, what I'm very concerned is under this situation, China and Japan, we should seize this opportunity, take the opportunity of the eastward shift of the global economy to do a better job with growing the supply chain, the value chain. We need to sign the FTA in East Asia. On top of the BRI, we need to enhance collaboration in the third markets. And by leveraging the dual circulation in the service chain, in the value chain, China and Japan should strengthen collaboration while we give more support to RCEP. For the TPP, I hope Denko could support China to join TPP. Economy, in the circular economy, and sustainable development and poverty reduction. To achieve sustainable development, we could seek more collaboration between the two sides. Thank you, Mr. Wei, for your excellent remarks. He shared one important idea, that is at present, the global trade and economic center is shifting eastward. Next, I would like to give the floor to Professor Yao Yang. I'm very glad to participate in this forum. I highly agree with what Mr. Wei Jianguo has shared. We do not see a massive deglobalization. Many countries benefited from globalization, of course, to a different degree. And post the global financial crisis, some countries made adjustments, which is understandable. However, it does not mean the globalization or deglobalization is a reality. Post the pandemic, we see some voice that the industrial chain will be disrupted and China will be excluded from this industrial chain. This is not a reality, because we can see the tie between China and the world, instead of being weakened, actually it's being strengthened. The economic recovery in China this year is the only large economy that could maintain positive growth for the whole year. It's forecasted to grow at 2%. The reason China could rebound so quickly could be attributed to two factors. Number one is the government adopted effective measures. The measures adopted by the government is not distributing cash. Instead, we adopted a proactive fiscal policy in dealing with recessions. It's more effective. And I believe China made the right choice.
Second, China's export has been increasing very quickly. In the world, their dependency on China products has never been decreased, but instead has been increasing. But of course, China also has some shortcomings, that the recovery on the consumption is relatively slow. But in the past 2 months, we've been seeing that the recovery side is also resumed back on track. But from January to October, it's been declining. But now, the past 2 months, it's been going positive. So China's economy growth percent between 7% to 8% would be reasonable. China-US relations is expected to be improved. Biden administration has more support for the international issues like climate change. So if I think that if Biden administration want to leave some political legacies, then one thing would be the climate change. And President Xi Jinping of China has already proposed that by 2030, China's carbon emission will be peaking and by 2016 we'll have the zero. So therefore, you see, we have lots of collaboration areas. So when it comes to climate change, if the two countries of us can have, or if the two countries can have collaboration, that will benefit the world definitely. So we have so many prospects and areas for further collaboration, like the vaccine development and others. And the Biden administration proposed that China is not the enemy of United States and will avoid to drag China down, such practice like drag China down. And that means that China and the US may have a cooperation yet competitive states. So we can have this kind of positive competition, a positive cycle. So I think that under the leadership of Biden administration, U.S.-China relations will be improved, which will be a good news for the world economy. Thank you, Mr. Yao. Mr. Yao just shared with us about his observations on China-U.S. relations, China economy, as well as China-Japan relations. Then, Mr. Yamaguchi, I have a suggestion that should we go into the second part of our discussion? The first part of our conversation, of our discussion, is have the two experts from both sides to deliver a speech. And how about for the second half, we'll have the Chinese experts to speak their mind first. Is that okay? Our time is short and tight, but we use not just now time is past less than 1 hour. So I still want to keep on the part one, the question topic, the first topic about the China-Japan strategic relation directions. So with this topic, we can continue our discussion. Is that okay? Oh, yes, we can do that. We still have time. Okay, thank you for that. I still have several Japanese panelists, in total 5 panelists. So let's give the floor to the 5 Japanese panelists to ask them to share, to do a short speech. And on top of that, there are another 2 Chinese panelists who haven't shared with us about their observations yet. So let's give floor to them one by one, then we start the Q&A. Okay, then let's give the floor to Mr. Kunibe from Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group. Kunibu. I've seen lots of old friends. Just now, the 4 experts from both sides have mentioned and shared with us about their ideas. I think that leading the world economy development, the key lies in the globalization and the labor distribution, and also the green economy to fight against the climate change. All these 3 are key factors. And all the 3 have been met the rising protectionism and additionally, digitalization also be impacted by some like data privacy management and digital management. So the economic globalization and digitalization will be the major topic under the post-COVID era that what we need to pay attention to in our future works. So for Japan, China, United States, and us, we all have had established very good bilateral relations. So I think that Japan is having a very unique and important position. Therefore, we need to have very serious exchange of ideas with China to talk about globalization, the rules of globalization, and also digitalization. There are lots of opportunities for Japan to share ideas and leading these discussions. Okay, then let's give the floor to Mr. Mori. I'm Mori from Mori Building Corporation. I totally agree with what the expert just said, and the development of Japanese economy to today. So in the end of the day, I would say that is the result of the capital flow as well as the collaboration and changes. And the Japanese population is undergoing negative growth. So therefore, Japan needs further to uphold globalization and to get benefit from that. So from economic circle, I think that no one would against my view. But we all know that China-Japan relations once had so, has some problem like we are having cold relations in politics, but hot relations in economy. So if the relations is changing in political side, it definitely have impact on the economy. Additionally, we will talk about Sino-US relations. And then as a result that China has started to pay more attention to China-Japan relations. It's just like the enemy of enemy is my friend. So just like Mr. Kunibe mentioned that the development goal of the United Nations would be the major goals for the era that including the decarbonization. So East Asia as well as Asia as each economic region, we all need to take the UN development goal as a common subject to enhance the Asia development, Asia economic development as well as global economic development. Every year, I got the chance to join this forum, so I'm very honored to be here again. And the sharing and observations from different experts are all very inspirational. I have 3 points. First one, globalization. China has already described its middle and long-term national strategies and guidelines. So we can see from that what direction China is moving ahead. Therefore, we need to understand that well. And on top of that, we need to think that in what methodologies, what approaches that we can do that, we can moving forward to that direction. And recently, we've seen that the government have released some reports about like China's dual circulation strategy. That means China is still respecting globalization, which is a common concept embraced by both Japan and China. So from global perspective, building definite rules and have everyone following the rules would be very important. In addition, from another issue is about commercial part. The China's export management law has started this year and asking other countries to take very serious measures for the security part. But economy takes a certain range of the freedom, especially to guarantee the supply chain. Therefore, from the regulatory side, those implementation guidelines and rules from regulators, we hope that those rules can be more clearly defined. And another point I'd like to talk about digitalization, which I think is an area that we can have more collaboration between China and Japan. China has a large population base, and this is very good test field. We can use Japanese technologies. Of course, China is already have lots of advanced technologies, but we still have lots of area for cooperation. Third point is related to second point as well, about cooperation on third-party market. So the two of our countries, how we can develop recover the economy in a post-pandemic era. And so for countries in Asia and third-party market, what kind of support we can provide? So through this kind of support, we can lead the recovery of economy. I think that's very important. And I am coming from financial sector. So we would have lots of projects, specific projects to have collaboration with China side. That's all from me. Thank you. I'm Iyama from Nomura Group. So there are many ways to avoid division. From capital market, I would say capital market, the blood of economy. It supports the growth. And so from the risk perspective, I would say globalization and connecting the world together. In the recent 3 to 5 years, China's financial openness to the outside world has lots of fruits, and its speed is also very fast, as we all can see. Even like every week, there is concrete measures for loosening regulatory requirements, especially for the regulatory requirement for banks and others. So I would say the pace of such opening up is very fast. I would say it's quite remarkable. And last year, we opened a security company in China, which got a lot of support from China's regulators. So we hope that such trend can be continued, can be maintained. Additionally, from financial policy prediction perspective, we still have some concerns. So I'd like to talk about one thing. Recently, anti-financial the listing issue of anti-financial, it has a very high market capitalization estimation, but like a few days before it's getting listed, it's being stopped by the regulator. So therefore, I think that we need to have very clear rules of what can do or what cannot be done. Otherwise, we don't have the prediction of policy changes, and it may pose risks. So that is relevant to the stability of financial system. And I think that Chinese government need to think about the liquidity and the freedom of private companies or business in the market. China's China is a huge market, and there are lots of issues we are having. That's including bad loans, and some businesses they are also have already meeting some bad loan issues. So if this continues, this kind of situation trend continues, it will erode the financial system.
To help the corporate debt market to prosper, to help professional investor, they need to know how to manage the risk based upon their due diligence. There should be institutional system to help capital markets to be able to handle the risks. In stabilizing the financial system, we should avoid defaults in the corporate bond market. Thank you. Good morning. I'm from the Mitsui Fudosan. We developed the 3 property markets with Chinese partners in China. In China, once the pandemic was under control, our sales has improved, and we see the momentum of the Chinese economy. When we talk about digital economy, who owns the data? The two countries need to discuss and reach consensus. Mitsui, we have set up a model of a smart city. We have a digital platform which was launched last month. The residents, by default, they agree to share their personal information. Of course, during the pandemic, we need to use this personal data as a case of emergency. However, globally, how the data should be used need to abide by certain norms and standards. If there is a division of the data, that would result more inconvenience to people's life. Sorry, Mr. Yamaguchi would like to make a few points. Our panelists had shared their points. With the Biden administration, U.S.-China relations, we don't think there will be remarkable improvement. Many people share this point. We should have clear understanding about that. Is the world going for more division or de-globalization? Many people have a question. The dominant direction is we need to review the globalization. A lot of the Japanese panelists made this point. And on top of that, we can discuss the division in the world and the anti-globalization. In Japan, there is a lot for us to do. However, we should recognize in Asia, the economic connectivity could lead to win-win. RCEP is one step forward. Japan adopting more measures in this regard has become more important. China is a large country. China need to be open-minded, to keep stability, to be tolerant. From outside, many people believe China has become more hubris, more arrogant. In the 1990s, Japan cared a lot about how the other country look at Japan. At the time, they didn't realize what's the perception. If we misjudge it, we might miss the right direction for globalization. For China, need to recognize it's a larger country, to think about the perception of these third parties of China. China should attach great importance to this issue, the issue of perception by other countries. Japan maintains friendly ties with the US and Japan. It's in an advantageous position. For Japan, on the one hand, we want to develop ties with China. In the meantime, under the friendly relations with the US and Japan, we can review how should we coexist with China and the UN Sustainable Development Target. We are facing severe challenges. We should strongly oppose the divergence in the world. And these are the main points shared by Japanese panelists. Now the floor is back to Chinese friend. The first topic we heard from a Japanese panelists, and with regard to the first topic, we have two panels. I would like to ask them to share their view. Number one is Mr. Xu Liang. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, good morning. I'm Xu Liang from Everbright Bank. I'm very glad to participate in this forum. We can see that we should maintain strategic focus despite what the direction the wind is blowing. This year we have the tension between big powers and the pandemic, which had casted a shadow over global economic. A lot of the international organizations, including WTO, forecasted that the global economy will suffer a recession. There is a negative growth of 3%. We still see the spread of COVID-19. There are a lot of volatility, which had resulted in great uncertainty of the global economy. That means the whole world, particularly China and Japan, need to work together to tackle the address. China take the lead in containing the COVID, which had protected safety of Chinese people, which also laid the foundation for the economic recovery. Chinese economy, despite the COVID and global economic shock, we have demonstrated strong resilience. We will make sure that by relying upon the domestic market circulation strengthened by international circulation, which also is indispensable to the high quality opening up. Facing such changes as a financial institution, we need to participate in the division of the labor. On the other hand, we need to promote technological innovation so that we could help industry and manufacturing to upgrade so that we could inject more impetus to the dual circulation. Last week, I went to Nanning to attend the China ASEAN exposition, and I saw the solidarity between China and ASEAN in fighting the COVID-19, as well as to work on the economic recovery in order to seize the policy dividend of China's continuous opening up to the outside world. Everbright Group and Everbright Bank had made a solid step in globalization. For example, we set up an BRI Green Investment Fund, and we have a waste power generation project in Vietnam. We have set a very pragmatic internationalization strategy. Everbright Bank have set up overseas branches in Hong Kong, Seoul, Luxembourg, Sydney, and Tokyo. And our business development has stepped on a healthy development track. Our business development in Japan has made progress as well. A lot of the panels have mentioned that China and Japan have become the most important trading partner to each other. China for 12 years. That has become the biggest trading partner, and Japan is the biggest source of the inward FDI in China. Despite the challenges posed by the pandemic, I believe that in the sectors of investment, trade, medical health, elderly care, energy conservation, environmental protection, tourism, we will continue the collaboration. Everbright Bank always attached great importance to cooperation with our Japanese partners, and we hope to get involved and participate in the development in other countries. Our first overseas branch is located in Tokyo, which was opened in August 2019. And we have got the approval from CBIRC to set up this office in Japan. It will promote collaboration with Japanese financial institutions and help them to invest and collaborate in China. And due to the pandemic and travel was affected, so we adopted a new approach, maintained close ties via video links to identify opportunities for collaboration and to tell the story from China to facilitate people-to-people exchange. Going forward, under the ESBU Coordinated Development Mechanism, we will combine our strengths with the national needs and to make our contribution to the economic and trade development of the two countries. Next, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Chen Youan. Soon, we will celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the normalization of the diplomatic ties between the two countries. And I always believe as close neighbors, we have a long-lasting friendship and help each other in times of difficulty. We see some new movements due to the pandemic this year. Despite that, I believe there are prominent advantages for the collaboration between China and Japan to take a flight to Tokyo, to Osaka. The flight time is shorter than the flight to Hainan. So it's very close, very convenient. Since the beginning of the reform and opening up, Japan had provided a lot of loans, which helped China to build infrastructure, including the port in Qinhuangdao, as well as infrastructures in Shantou, the power plant, also power plants in Chongqing. All these projects are still playing very important roles today. The two countries have entered into a new phase for development. Personally, I believe in this new phase, we need to engage and expand collaboration in many sectors.
So first of all, capital market. As one expert just mentioned that in the past several years that China's capital market is being opened to the outside world faster and faster. And up to now, insurance, securities, futures, public fund has already loosened its controls on foreign ownership. And Japanese side is also one of the beneficiary, one of the countries that benefit from this. Nomura controlled group Nomura Oriental this company has been opened last year, and not long ago, CSRC and also former president from central bank. They have led a 20 plus delegation to the Nomura Oriental to pay the official visit. And the fifth plenary session just being closed, and in which the 14th five-year plan and the guideline by 2035, all these important documents are passed. So last year, the GDP is less than 100 trillion. 100 trillion. So in the past 3 decades, since the reform and opening up, the growth rate is between 8 to 9%. So the growth rate will be slowing down. But even between 5.5% and by the end of 2025, our per capita GDP in China will reach around 15,000 US dollars. And so therefore, considering the year by 2035 and 2050, which is our second 100 years, China's GDP will further increase. And in this process, China and Japan as close neighbors, I don't see any reason why don't we do more collaboration in this process. And besides that, China is also facing the aging population issue. And the population above age of 60 accounting more than 70%. And so you can see that our aging population is also very serious. So the proportion of elderly population age 65 plus is likely to rise up from 12% in 2020 to 40% in 2025 and 70% in 2030. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you for Chinese experts to make this sharing. And from Chinese experts' views, we can see that we have a basic observation of the current world economy. So there are three basic trends. One is super globalization. We should admit that and embrace that. But right now we admit that globalization met some setbacks. But Chinese experts also mentioned that during the setbacks of super globalization, the digital globalization, service globalization, and innovation globalization, as well as globalization on people-to-people exchanges, would be the new areas of globalization, and it will continue to moving ahead. Second, the global trade investment and its development, also seeing some setbacks. We have to admit that too. So since the crisis, the trade increasing volume and that to the proportion of economic volume, it's actually meeting some setbacks. So as Chinese experts mentioned, that there is new types of trade investment, which is still continuing. The third basic fact is that the global supply chain is facing some setbacks as well in terms of its patterns. Additionally, all the experts from both sides mentioned that whether it's China, Japan, or Asia, we need to have more collaboration in improving and enhancing the supply chain and improve the value of the industrial chain for East Asia and Asia. So such collaboration still continues. So facing the global landscape, so Chinese side, we think that the world is undergoing a trend that is unseen in the past century. And China is facing the 14th five-year plan and new journey of the development goals by 2035. So therefore, we have proposed new concepts, new development patterns, and all those concepts. So therefore, from now on, China will rely on the dual circulation both internationally and domestically. So that means that we will continue to expand our opening up process and expand the domestic consumption and domestic demands. So I hope that the 14th five-year plan, during that period, China's tariff rates will be further decreased, and it will be more convenient for businesses, and the service market will be further opened. Secondly, China, in the management of rules, regulations, criteria, in its system governance, we will follow the high standard of that of the international ones. And third, China will open up its innovation and collaboration, as well as sharing the benefits. So since the 14th five-year plan, China will become a huge opportunity market for Japanese people, for Japanese businesses, as well as that of the world. So domestic demand. In terms of collaboration, Chinese experts believe that China-Japan in the future development in areas like the COVID-19 response, we will deepen our cooperation and industrial chain cooperation, and also expanding more collaboration on innovation, on service opening up, as well as the capital flow between China, Japan, East Asia with the world, and areas like the green ecological development, and also to improving the systems and frameworks of China and Japan. So I think that China, Japan, as big countries in the world, we have common responsibility in this. And Chinese experts have shared a lot in areas of China-Japan collaboration, that's including the strategic gamings and others. So Chinese panelists has already shared their observation on all this. That is to say, we will actively pushing forward the collaboration, the win-win, and opening up. We will do our work, our part, well first. Okay, so that's all from the Chinese side. And now let me give the floor back to the Japanese side, Mr. Yamaguchi. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Thank you for your thorough summary. Okay, we have another 15 minutes. So we will have more discussions on our topics and also to take up questions from the participants. Therefore, for our panelist discussion, I'd like to control within 40 minutes. The next topic is and how to proceed with post-pandemic economic restructuring in both countries, and how will China, Japan work together to build a stable Asian and world economy. Okay, first of all, let's give the floor to Mr. Ohashi from Japan side to give us his opinions. I'm Ohashi. So just now, Mr. Mori has mentioned about political hot in political side, while cold in political side, while hot in the economic side. That was in the period between 2011 to 2013. And back then, China claimed itself as a developing country. And as a result, so us and other Western countries, we believed that China economy won't generate much impact on the world economy. That was our understanding. But after 2013, President Xi Jinping became the president of China, and the GDP by 2013 had already surpassed Japan, and China became second largest economy in the world. Therefore, Although China is claiming itself as a developing country, but the world don't view China as a developing country anymore. China is a very big country. So hot in politics while cold in economy. I think that in today's background, it won't happen anymore. That is to say, if we are cold in political side, the economy will inevitably be cold too. So through this kind of adjustment, and also from the perspective of balance of globally to balance the risks. So that is basic understanding by Western countries on China. So I think China may have many views about this as well. However, in the maritime development, China hadn't showed much of interest in the past, but right now we see lots of activities in South China Sea, East China Sea, especially development around those isolates and islands. China is quite active. We cannot talk too much or point fingers on China's strategies, but this kind of action from China actually brought lots of guarding feelings from the Western countries. So for TPP, during the APEC meeting, President Xi Jinping stated that China also would like to actively involve in TPP. That's what is said by President Xi. But TPP basically TPP is for Western countries and even some smaller countries in the Western world. They are trying to set up a independent, separate economic circle to protect themselves. So therefore, that's why the participating countries of TPP, even all of them are voting yes. I would say the result would be like not allowing China to join TPP. So from current status, I would say if China don't change any of its current behaviors, members in TPP won't vote yes for China to join. That's my personal opinion. Additionally, the Biden administration maybe will enhance the signing of FTA between United States and Taiwan, which will be a huge risk. So China's economic policies in the future and China's influence is so huge right now. But in the future, what kind of actions China may take? This is a very important aspect. And this also requires China to be more restrained. And as for the issues on Diaoyu Islands, based on those news reports may not be 100% accurate, but Foreign Minister Wang Yi has mentioned that the fishing boats, civilian fishing boats, or even some fake fishing boats, such words was mentioned during his visit to Japan. But from Japan's side, we think this is too much. So China has so many rhetorics on surrounding the topic of Diaoyu Islands, and it's taking very hard stance. I don't think that is good and beneficial to China. And in other words, only when politics become hot, that economy become hot as well. I hope China side can understand that. And so from political side, I hope China can understand the basic understanding of Western countries more or less. Thank you.
I'm Kunibe from Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group. I'm glad to have this opportunity to engage in exchanges virtually. It's a pity we can't meet person in person in 2014. I participated in the Beijing Tokyo Forum and I have visited China many times. Afterwards, I see a great improvements in the bilateral ties. However, on the other side, following the pandemic, the two countries have been greatly affected. As the moderator has mentioned, as the theme of this sub-forum, the world is increasingly divergent. We need to look into the future. That's why this forum is of great significance. What should be the future orientation? I have 2 points to make. Number one, the economic and the trade ties. How should we grow trade between the two countries? The pandemic, because of clock downs, because of the lockdowns, we need to diversify the supply chain. Many businesses started to plan to relocate a lot of the production base away from China to other countries like China Plus model. We have visited a lot of entrepreneurs. The number of people who are considering to reduce investment account to 95% are planning to increase or maintain the status quo. China as a manufacturing base as a major market is still very important. That's the result of our survey. We hope that China would further expand the domestic demand, and we will increase investments when promoting foreign investment. We hope Chinese government would continue to improve its business environment. With regard to the financial collaboration between two countries, we see increasingly the two countries are collaborating thanks to the opening up and the liberalization of the financial market in China. No, 怎么没声音了？话筒没打开，他可能那个话筒中文。哎呦，那咋回事？Sorry, we are not able to hear the Chinese interpretation of the speaker. There is a technical glitch. Very sorry about the disruption. Okay. We should continue the collaboration. My company earlier have made a 2030 development program for the 10 years. And we have set up one goal. We have a 10 trillion Japanese yen fund. In China, there is a 7 billion RMB UN Green Fund. Collaboration in the investment field and caring of the elderly. We have collaboration involving both the government and the private sector. That's what we should do. I will stop here. Okay, let's give the floor back to China. Thank you. Next, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Qu Liang from Everbright Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, I have 3 points. Number one, to join hands to fight the pandemic, to strengthen collaboration. The pandemic is spreading, which had casted a shadow on global economy and trade. However, it will not divide the world. Mutual support and friendly cooperation between China and Japan have lands apart, skies shared, and we will continue to expand exchanges. China and Japan as major economies in East Asia, in the world, and the new euro, it's the only right choice for us to enhance mutual trust and engage in positive interaction, so that we could build China-Japan relation fitting the needs of the new euro. We need to work together to safeguard the international trading system, the multilateralism, to break regional trade blocks and lead regional integration, which could set up a good example for Asia and for the whole world by establishing a unified and a stable production and consumption market. Number two, deepen financial collaboration and to actively develop and embrace the digital revolution. China and Japan have achieved a direct settlement of their trade in RMB and Japanese yen. The scale of mutual trading of each other's treasury bond is also increasing. CITIC Bank and ICBC have successfully issued bonds in China. Mitsuo Bank have become the first Japanese bank to enter the China interbond market. In addition, the banking industry of the two countries have been expanding depth cooperation in many fields, such as international settlement, cross-border financing, syndicated loans, and equity mergers and acquisitions. Of course, in this process, both China and Japan needs the government adopt the measures to mitigate and diffuse risks. Some Japanese friends mentioned that interbank market corporate debt defaults, we have effectively managed those risks. Number two, technological innovation freed up more space for collaboration. Everbright Bank made a lot of efforts to develop the digital financial technology. We understand like Mitsui and other Japanese banks is also embracing the new digital technology to engage in the business innovation, and they are enhancing digital reforms. And number three, we need to strengthen exchanges in the financial industries in the two countries. The signing of RCEP means we will achieve a win-win. RCEP has, for the first time, for Japan and China to reduce their tariff, which could inject new impetus to the trade and economic development. We should focus on the future and boost the confidence. And the new landscape, we are facing favorable conditions to grow the ties between the two countries. We should seize this opportunity, and the Chinese banking industry will continue to deepen cooperation with the Japanese peers and make a due contribution to serving people's livelihood, promoting investment and trade facilitation. Thank you, Mr. Qu. Next, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Chen Youan. This year marks the 30 years anniversary of the capital market establishment in China in 1878. 142 years prior to China's establishment of the capital market. Japan has 3,700 public companies, which account to 100 trillion. And in China, we have close to 4,000 public companies. Total market capitalization is 70 trillion RMB. So compared to Japan, there is still a great potential to grow, particularly comparing to the US. Since 2002, China started the QD and the QFI program in 2014. We had started Shanghai Hong Kong Stock Connect and Shenzhen Hong Kong Stock Connect. And last year we started Shanghai London Stock Connect. I want to propose that as close neighbors, maybe we could consider to open up Shanghai Tokyo Stock Connect and Shenzhen Tokyo Stock Connect. In addition, between the two countries, the mutual investment bond market, particularly the cross-border wealth management, I believe there is a great potential to grow. Since last year, China announced the Great Bay Area Development Program, and in June 1st this year, we announced in Hainan will be a free trade island. In 2025, it will be operational. This represents a great opportunity. The RCEP would offer great opportunities for the two countries to engage in collaboration. Since last year, the combined GDP of the two countries around 20 trillion USD. The US is $21 trillion. EU is $16 trillion. Of the top 10 economies, China and Japan, if we combine together, that means there is a great area and potential to grow. We need to strengthen personnel exchange between the two countries. When we started reform and opening up, China sent a lot of interns. Nomura alone trained over 1,000 financial talents. They played very important roles in facilitating collaboration. Yesterday, some people mentioned we could set up a talents fund. That is a project worthy of further exploration. Thank you. Next, maybe we could start a free discussion. Thank you for the excellent suggestions made by the panelists from both China and Japan. I believe we are facing new opportunities to strengthen collaboration between the two countries. There are three aspects. Number one, we could drive bilateral and multilateral regional FTA with Japan and China as the main force. I believe China-Japan ROK FTA should accelerate the negotiation. I believe the time is ripe because Japan had shared such an idea with both China and ROK. If we could strengthen our collaboration in the China-Japan ROK FTA, that would facilitate further development of the supply chain, as well as the clustering of the technology clusters, innovation clusters, value chain clusters.
China is second largest economy, Japan is third largest economy, and South Korea as ninth largest economy. So combined together, we would play a very important role for the economic recovery globally and also the free trade and facilitation. Second, China, Japan need to have more cooperation in Belt and Road, especially in the third-party cooperation. We can play a leading role in this. Last year, the third-party cooperation has exceeded over 68, and this year, Japan has joined in China CIIE import and export exhibition, and you see that China is a big market. We can always find ways to learn each other for Japan and China. And Japanese businesses, if we combine together, we can avoid risks on projects and on investment, as well as some national risks. And Chinese businesses can learn more experience through collaboration with Japan. And the Belt and Road Initiative has invested over 1,000 projects. We are willing to enhance third-party collaboration in green development, energy conservation, basic infrastructure, and other areas with Japan. Not the second collaboration, third collaboration is the most important one. I feel that the industrial parks and manufacturing parks of Japanese ones in China are relatively less, while that of Germany has already deepened down to China's tier 2 and tier 3 cities. In Jiangsu, Taicang, there are lots of the industrial parks that's sponsored by Germany. So China, Japan, we can cover areas like Jiangsu province, Shandong province, Guangdong province. We always can start and launch more industrial chain cooperation in those three provinces. We can do innovation, especially on manufacturing industry, because we have these conditions for IT industry. Japan, you have the upstream, downstream of IT, and also for automobile parts and the sports, the aging care, cultures, entertainments. We all can have cooperation in those areas and sectors. So this enhanced industrial collaboration will showcase the advantage of each of us, so we can be complementary to each other. I think that it's worthy for further discussion. And economic and trade. And for economic and trade, we are having more financial opening up to the outside world. Of course, the financial reform would be a painful process, but right now we are coming to a high level of free and open state. So China is always learning from other parties. And the reform that China is undergoing in the past several years is very hard and very quickly, and it's also evolving in so many extensive places and sectors. So personally, I believe that besides Beijing Tokyo Forum, besides that, we need to have another discussion or forum on economy and trade. I suggest that we can start another new forum on trade and economy, or on finance, a new forum on finance. Mr. Qu Liang and Mr. Chen all mentioned all the financial areas. Mr. Yao mentioned that too. So finance, we need to enhance our collaboration in finance. Mr. Chen mentioned just now that the combined GDP between China and Japan is over 20 trillion US dollars. And so as second largest economy and the third largest economy combined together, we still have some room to compare that with the largest economy, United States. And also, as for the listed companies in China, we still have still have a huge room for further development comparing to that of the United States. So how the listed companies can have secure, safe, and regulated development, we can learn that from Japan. So in Tokyo-Beijing forum, under this, we need to add another forum themed and focused on finance, so that the finance industry can say their voice and make their voice heard more, not only for trade and finance. Mr. Zhang. From Japanese side, we also want to say a few words. Can we do that? Mr. Yamaguchi, we have less representative from China side. So next, let's give the floor to China panelist, Mr. Yao Yang. Then we will give the rest of the time back to Japan. Is that okay? Understood. Okay. So, Mr. Yao, can you please just say a few words in a very short period of time? Okay, sure, no problem. I'd like to respond to the question that's raised by Japanese panelists. I'd like to give the response. The Japanese panelists mentioned about China-Japan relations and believe that China-Japan relations don't have a situation of cold politics and hot economy. And if politics is cold, then economy cannot be hot. And also Japanese panelists had some concerns on China's future directions. So I'd like to make 2 points on that. First, China has always trying to follow the international orders. If the Japanese panelists have been noted that President Xi Jinping has made several speeches recently, and in his speech, he has already mentioned all these areas which would be sufficient evidence of that. And for the 40th anniversary in Shenzhen, his speech in the 40th anniversary of Shenzhen's establishment, as well as 30th establishment of Shanghai Pudong district, he already addressed the issues that China will follow international rules. So you don't need to worry about that. Additionally, of course, China is still in the process of developing. Many countries in outside China don't think China is a developing country, but our GDP per capita is only 10,000 US dollars. So that means we are a developing country. Many issues and problems in China is not whether it's a developed or developing, but about of the systems. And so on that, China's political system have been proved in the past 4 decades that China's systems has its huge advantages. And any objective and reasonable thinking from this perspective, you all would admit that. I have also done political economic studies. In the past 4 decades, the Chinese government performed much better compared to that of other governments. China's culture is deeply rooted from the Confucianism, which our system is different from that of the selection democracy in Western countries. But we are different, but that doesn't mean that we don't have that or that the feature that exists in us. So as East Asian people, we need to look at our traditions, Confucianism, because Confucianism is belong to the East Asia as well as to the world. The thought of Confucianism is embody some common features of humanity. We need to So from that, we need to take seriously about China's political systems. Thank you, Mr. Yao and Mr. Yamaguchi. That's end of the Chinese panelists sharing. The floor is yours. Okay, let's give the floor to Mr. Nakao. So just like Mr. Yang mentioned that Japanese people also like and favorite Confucianism. I also understand lots of the conventional sayings of Confucianism. Additionally, there are lots of collaboration and high possibility of collaboration between China and Japan. In 2002, I acted as the Minister of Finance in Japan. So I also done lots of work that's Central Bank of China PBOC and Japanese Administration of Finance. We had sat down together to discuss this. That including topics like international rules and climate changes. These are all the areas that we can have collaboration. But just as the gentleman just mentioned, Mr. Yang mentioned that yes, economy and politics cannot be totally segregated. I hope that that Chinese side can understand that. Actually, if we fall into the suicidal trap and if we have excessive regulating on the existing developed countries, it will be risky because China and Japan has already had financial frictions in the past in the automobiles, finance, and other areas. But US is not always right, for sure. So that's why we have this confrontation right now. But generally and overall, everything is open and fair. And they also open their doors to China. So as long as China's policy can keep things stable, United States won't necessarily to have over watching on China. So that is where I think that China and the US may have room for collaboration. And China has some propositions in its military and others. Of course, each country have their own propositions. But if such propositions too much, then Western countries like United States, they may have concern on this. So the political systems, of course, we have our own ideas and opinions. But if you are being too hard and harsh toward outside world, then other countries may react. And additionally, the fifth plenary session, all these contents are very accurate. That's including the rich and poor poverty, wellness gap, and opening up to the outside world. All these are correct. But just like I mentioned, that military getting stronger on military, and Western country may have some concerns on that. I hope you can understand. Okay. President Xi Jinping proposed for dual circulation. So from supply chain perspective, from the market perspective, it is just so. So for the economy, especially Japanese economy, China's market is very important. That is no doubt. The free capitalism, in other words, is market economy. It is all about competition and the survival of fittest. But what is more important is that whether the rules and regulations are fair, justice, whether all the information are transparent and released, disclosed transparently, these are all very important. It's also very important for attracting foreign investments. So from this sense, China's attitude on Hong Kong and the one country, two system. So whether those systems has been implemented or not, we are quite paying a lot of attention on that. And also based on the public opinion survey by the general NPO, the Japanese public don't think that one country, two system has been put into place or implemented.
We should have a clear understanding, otherwise it would have impact on the economy. I hope it should not raise alarms in the economic sector. Now, Mr. Iyama, with regard to the Sino-Japan collaboration, we have 2 points. Number one, aging society, the lower birth rate. Japan are very concerned, is very concerned about the aging society, the lower birth rate. The social security system in Japan is encountered challenges because people live longer, but financial assets have not grown. And whether your asset could support you in your old age is a question. China had a one-child policy, and the population is over 10 times that of Japan. Going forward, aging society and the demographic changes would be much bigger in scale. We need to look at these issues and take actions early. Otherwise, it will be too late, and the people accumulate wealth through the capital market. Otherwise, what mentioned in the dual circulation, it not only involves consumption without accumulation of assets, it would have a big impact on the future prospects for the Chinese individuals that want to diversify their investment in the overseas market. But this process is very slow. I hope there are measures taken in this regard. Another point, we have veterans in the banking and real estate sector. Japanese property bubble occurred in the 1980s. At that time, the capital market was not fully developed due to the lack of development of the property market. China wants to go for the dual circulation. The financial assets, you can see in the 1990s, the Japanese government adopted liberalization in the financial markets in the pricing of property. Following the liberalization, we see it was rational pricing of the property, which contributed to the stability of the property market. Only with better rules could we stably accumulate the asset. China wants to promote the dual circulation strategy. I have pointed out there are defaults in the property market as well. We need to give due attention. Okay, next one, Mr. Yoshikawa and Mr. Wei mentioned about strengthening collaboration between China and Japan. I'm also working in the financial sector. I believe we do and should strengthen financial collaboration between two countries. I used to work in China. During that time, I see that Chinese people are very sincere. They are eager to learn. I was very impressed. But in the fintech, China has already overtaken Japan. I hope that in the fintech we could strengthen collaboration. Financial sector is highly regulated. In the past, the regulation was following the criteria set up by the EU and the US. And I hope Japan and China could work together on setting up rules for the regulation in the financial sector. Our theme for the discussion is a post-pandemic collaboration between China and Japan. And in the medical, pharmaceutical sector, health sector, innovation in digital technology, and tourism. Tourism could see some quick results during the pandemic. If we want to shake off its impact, in addition to economy, tourism is a very good way for both China and Japan. We want to see more Chinese to visit Japan, and we want to see more Japanese to visit China. However, in this regard, there are some difficulties, particularly in the use of smartphones for the overseas tourists. It's quite inconvenient for them to use their mobile phones in China. Lastly, in the third-party market collaboration between China and Japan in 2018, when primarily visited Japan, third-party market collaboration have seen some progress. If we look into the future, I believe third-party market collaboration is more and more important. Businesses from the two countries, in addition to compliance, they need to be open as well as to maintain sound management over the debt. The debt sustainability, I believe, is also a hot issue in China. In this regard, Japanese financial institutions could make some contribution. In terms of the institutional arrangements related to financing, for example, sharing the risks, providing risk funds, we could contribute our wisdom and experience. In my view, the third-party market collaboration could go beyond the collaboration in the infrastructure. Next one is Mr. Humaka. And for the revision of the houses, I believe it could promote the domestic demand in terms of renovating the existing homes. 7 million residential units need to be refurbished. In Japan, the old and existing residential homes, some old residential buildings have no elevators. There is no insulation. The energy efficiency is low, and they are not durable. If we encounter another pandemic, they will not be able to resist the pandemic. On the one hand, we see old residential building. On the other hand, we have a lot of elderly. So on both hardware and software, we need to adopt measures. We should adopt a two-pronged strategy. Old building refurbishment in Japan is done by private property developers. They need to preserve the value of the old building. At the same time, they should make it more functional, which is very difficult because we need to provide a temporary housing during the period of refurbishment, and it should be a tailored solution. It's a high rise. That means everyone needs to agree before refurbishment or rebuilding. That's a common issue in China and Japan. The problem of the old buildings, if we adopt measures to address it, it could contribute to the improvement of living standards. In China, the new civil code has been amended. IP protection is a key chapter. For foreign companies, they want to have a sound law to protect their IP. I hope such rules will be very well enforced beginning from next year. The panelists have mentioned the predictability of the regulation is vital for us to make investment in China with a higher transparency. We will see more collaboration in China by Japanese companies, and dual circulation would be feasible. Thank you. It's almost time for us to close. Let's see if there are questions from the audience. Maybe we could allow 1 or 2 questions. For Japanese side, it seems there are no questions. Are there any questions from the audience in the Chinese side? Any questions from the audience? No, no questions from the audience. Okay. That's the limitation of a virtual meeting. That's quite rare that no one raised questions in the sub-forum of economic and trade. That's something new. That's a recap. I will first recap first. From the beginning, I said that this forum as a whole look at the future direction of the global economy. We believe the trend of globalization, multilateralism, free trading, we believe it will be continued. And we should evaluate, that is one key point. How should we drive forward this trend? The Sino-Japanese tie is very important. We are facing common challenges, a lot of common challenges, one of which is the pressing COVID-19 pandemic and SDG, and the aging society, the changes in the demographics, the lower birth rates, financial collaboration, how to move forward. These are all challenges we need to come up with clear guidelines. We should take this as breakthrough points to strengthen collaboration between the two countries. If we could deliver on that, it could offer some inspiration to addressing the global issues. That's my personal view. Of course, in the Eastern Asian region, as Mr. Wei has pointed out, the global center is moving eastward. Is that 100% correct? Let's not talk about that for the time being. However, the position of East Asia would become more important. How can we strengthen the bilateral tie? Is increasingly an important issue. I believe you might have a difference of opinion. The bilateral tie and mutual trust is very important. China is a larger country. China should fully recognize that. And the views of on by the peoples, by the Americans, by the Japanese, it has been shown in the results of the survey. I hope China could recognize and see the importance of those perceptions. We need to pay attention to such kind of perceptions on China. Going forward, the two countries need to engage in collaboration, which is indispensable to the regional and the world development. Once again, through this forum, we have deepened this understanding. That's my summary. Now the floor is yours, Mr. Zhang. Thank you. I have 3 points to share.
First, about the direction of the globalization. So where the globalization heading? China, Japan, East Asia. Importance in this process is very important to deciding where the globalization is heading. The Chinese and Japanese experts mentioned about China-Japan relations. So first is about the political heart and economic code. And the second would be political and economic code. Third would be political code and economic heart. And so through this so many years of dialogue, we expect that how China-Japan, China relations can really create a new landscape of political heart and economic heart as well. So this new landscape will be a new beginning for Japan and also for China as well. Therefore, China and Japan, our strategic mutual trust need to be deepened by dialogues and communications. Our common responsibility and is all about political and economic being hot between our two countries. And that is will decide where the East Asia will go in the future. Second is about regionalization. As for regionalization, RCEP is the largest free trade area in the world. Which is very different from Western-dominated like agreement between Mexico, U.S. and Canada, because RCEP covers so many countries like those very least developed countries like Laos and Myanmar and others. So this is really agreement for open and inclusive and sharing benefit. Japanese friends mentioned that China has clearly mentioned that China wants to join CTPT. Since presidency of Biden administration, they may go back to CPTPP. If U.S. going back to that, then many of those freezing clauses will be kicked off again. And I believe that U.S. will raise a lot of new and high standard rules and criteria. So under this situation, I would say that China is actively thinking about joining CPTPP. This actually sending a very important signal that China is willing to accept international high standard and rules, because that could be new start of a journey of the new 3 decades of opening up to the outside world. Third, the post-pandemic China-Japan relations and what kind of roles we can play in the reconstruction of Asia and world. So my understanding is the COVID-19 impact, we would say that China is first country stabilized, then followed by Japan and South Korea, then East ASEAN's. So that tells us that China, ROK, and East Asia and Japan, we actually have better conditions to to move forward the common responsibilities, common interests, in a common future. That's why I think we have much better foundation for collaboration. I believe that our children and our grandchildren, when they look at China-Japan relations, and when they look at the Asia Production Network as well as cooperation transformation of Asia, as well as when they see the contribution made by Japan and China towards the world, they definitely have a different view from ours. So that's why any collaborations in monetary policy, in finance and others, I believe that our children and grandchildren, they will have more ways, approaches to do that, to contribute to that. So therefore, I call for more confidence for both sides. Let's join our hands and making unremitting efforts to that direction. Thank you very much. Mr. Zhang, Mr. Wei, and other panelists from Chinese side. After listening to your observations, opinions, I would say it's very inspirational. Although we are having this virtual meeting, but we really had a very helpful and honest discussion. Next year, we hope that we can convene and having a face-to-face meeting instead of virtual meeting. And by then, I believe that we can have more deep discussions. And thank you all. Thank you all for your efforts. Thank you, our organizers. Thank you, all the Japanese experts as well as Chinese experts.